Naruyuki Yuiga is a lonely high schooler from a poor family who is put in charge to tutor 3 genius girls in order to get 100% scholarship. However, his life soon changes when he gets his harem of 5 girls, including his hot teacher and senior at Ikano's academy. There's this teacher who tells the headmaster that she can't keep tutoring 2 students anymore. Turns out, she thinks their hard work won't pay off. After a few months, other teachers also give up on tutoring them, so the headmaster decides to try something different. Meanwhile, there are 2 girls at the school who are really amazing in their own special ways. One of them is Agata Rizu, famous for her incredible math and physics skills. People call her Clockwork Thumbelina as she can solve equations super fast. The other girl is Fumino Furuhashi, a genius when it comes to literature. Her writing is so good that even normal things written by her makes people cry. Plus, she's really a wife material, so a lot of boys in the school admire her. However, Yuiga Naruyuki, who seems to be the main character, is quite the opposite. He has to study really hard every night just to keep up in school. He's really motivated to get good grades as he wants to be chosen for the VIP recommendation at his school. After their class is over, he is called to the principal's office. Yuiga is really happy when the principal himself tells him that he will be included in the VIP recommendation. However, there's a catch. He must become a tutor for 2 genius students at their school, Furuhashi and Rizu. If he succeeds in doing that, he will be considered for the VIP recommendation. Despite feeling positive about it, Yuiga wonders how a regular student like him could help natural geniuses. Later, the 3 of them have their first study session together. The girls tell Yuiga that even though they are skilled in different subjects, their goals are actually quite different. Furuhashi, who is good at literature, wants to excel in science. On the other hand, Rizu, who is a math genius, wants to learn more about literature. Rizu even predicted that their new tutor would give up on them just like others once he realizes how challenging it would be. It turns out that their intelligence doesn't really help them in other subjects. In fact, their test scores actually got worse as time went on. Yuiga had an idea for them to teach each other their respective strengths, but it didn't work out as natural geniuses struggled to explain what comes naturally to them. With that, Yuiga had to suggest that they focus on what they're already good at. This made Rizu really angry, saying that he is just like the other tutors and that nobody can dictate what she should dream about regardless of her abilities. That night, Yuiga was thinking about what he had done. He remembered his dad's advice that making mistakes is okay because it helps us figure out what we really want. It's not about being instantly good at something, but about being persistent and improving over time. With this newfound motivation, he revised the notes the geniuses had left and apologized to them the next morning. He promised to keep helping them and make things better. Plus, he couldn't help but feel a bit awkward being so close to such beautiful girls. Even so, Yuiga got to know his 2 new students and what drives them beyond their genius abilities. While walking Furuhashi home, she shared her dream of studying astronomy, inspired by her mother's favorite star. Yuiga noticed Rizu playing card games alone in the park during a break from delivering udon. Through their game, he discovered Rizu's interest in psychology and understanding human emotions. Now, Yuiga understands that being a genius is great, but there's more to their dreams and aspirations. As Yuiga gets home, his 2 youngest siblings greet him. Inside, his younger sister, Mizuki, comes up to Yuiga and tells him that dinner is ready. Just then, she smells girl's perfume from him, and it upsets her. The next day, right before classes start, Rizu and Fumino come to class 3B to find Naruyuki, which surprises his friends. Yuiga goes over to them and asks if they need something. Both Rizu and Fumino whisper to Yuiga about what they talked about last night and ask him to keep it a secret from everyone else, making the loser blush. Lately, Yuiga walks absent-mindedly with his classmates towards their room. He's lost in thought about all the things he needs to do, like finishing his report for the headmaster and preparing tests for his students. While walking, he doesn't notice someone calling out and accidentally bumps into them from behind. He struggles to get up and tells his friend, Yuruka Takemoto, to stop doing this whenever they see each other. Turns out, Yuiga's childhood friend is heading to practice and asks if she can borrow his notebook for an assignment. Yuiga gets annoyed and tells her that she should do her own work sometimes since she's been borrowing notes since middle school. Rather than getting upset, Yuruka doubles down on her efforts to befriend him. Meanwhile, Yuiga's newfound popularity with the girls draws the attention of his friends, leaving them unable to resist staring. Anyway, Yuiga goes to see the headmaster to give his report and mentions that there's been some progress with his 2 students. Everything seems fine until the headmaster brings up the fact that Yuiga and Yuruka are childhood friends. He explains that Yuruka is an amazing swimmer and athlete, and they're considering recommending her as a VIP. The only issue is that she's struggling with academics. With that, poor Yuiga is given another task which he really doesn't want to do. From now on, Yuruka is assigned to be under Yuiga's tutoring sessions. After their meeting, Yuiga goes to see Yuruka while she's training in the pool. They exchange some snide remarks and Yuiga explains why he's there. Yuruka admits that she needs help but is unsure about accepting the tutoring. This leads to a playful chase between the two, but as expected, Yuruka slips and falls into the pool. After some more arguing, Yuruka finally agrees to the tutoring. It seems like she joined to spend time with Yuruka, especially after seeing Furuhashi and Rizu as his other students. On her way home, Yuruka takes a look at Yuruka's notebook and it brings back memories of how kind he was to her in the past. He used to support and praise her hard work in sports, which made her blush. Meanwhile, Rizu struggles with a short essay assignment and requests a study session with Yuruka that night. Meanwhile, Yuruka gets to know that Rizu is alone with Yuruka at his house, so she rushes over there immediately. Unfortunately, while they are studying, there is a power outage, and they discover that Rizu is afraid of the dark. Yuruka tries to get close to Yuruka like Rizu did, but she admits she's not that brave. However, Yuruka comes up with a clever solution using a makeshift candle to bring some light. His words about finding a different way to light their path really resonate with Rizu, and after the power comes back, she leaves. The next morning, Rizu finally passes her essay, and she thanks Yuruka for his help. The teachers are surprised and happy about her progress. Although Kurisu acknowledges their progress, she knows that one student isn't doing as well with the new tutor, and that student happens to be Yuruka. The group decides to study together, but Yuruka finds it difficult. However, Yuruka tells her that the most important thing is to keep trying and not give up. He even connects this to Yuruka's experience with swimming. Luckily, this really resonates with Yuruka and motivates her to try her best on the exams. She even feels a bit jealous of Furuhashi at times. But when she sees that her own talents are bigger, she gets pumped up again. But guess what? It was actually when Yuruka decided to merge swimming into Yuruka's study sessions that she was able to master memorization. At the end of the day, Yuruka feels pretty confident about the upcoming test, but Yuruka suggests she should still review, just in case. Yuruka agrees with him that studying is tough and she still doesn't like it. But she's been enjoying the journey as she gets to work hard with Rizu and Furuhashi towards a common goal. She also mentions that being with Yuruka makes it even more fun. When Yuruka asks what she means, Yuruka surprises him with a gift as a way of saying thanks for all his help since they first met. She tells him to make good use of it and then runs off to join Rizu and Furuhashi. Yuruka has another meeting with the headmaster, but this time Kurisu joins them. The headmaster says that he wants Furuhashi and Rizu to get at least average or higher scores. Yuruka is surprised by this sudden expectation for his tutored students. However, the headmaster gently presents it as an ultimatum, saying that if the girls can't achieve the results, it would be better to redirect their focus from their dream courses. Yuruka believes in them and confidently says that somehow both girls will pass the midterms and leaves the office. As Yuruka leaves the office, he doesn't notice that both Furuhashi and Rizu are following him by chance. But guess what? They end up overhearing the conversation between the headmaster and Kurisu, who used to be their old tutor. Kurisu describes Yuruka's tutoring as neglectful and suggests that they shouldn't let the girls pursue something they're not good at, regardless of their feelings. Yuruka thanks the headmaster for believing in them, while the headmaster remains silent. Kurisu then mentions that if the girls don't meet their expectations, Yuruka should be replaced as their tutor. When Furuhashi and Rizu hear this, concern fills their faces because they realize there's a lot more at stake this time. It turns out that their tutors have been replaced before after getting bad marks in their midterms. However, this time both girls went their separate ways to get ready for the test. Rizu, even though she had to help at her noodle shop, still invited Yuruka to study until nighttime. Rizu couldn't help but express her worry that Yuruka might stop being their tutor, as he was the only one who truly supported their dreams. However, when he reassured her that if they failed, they would just study for the next one, she knew Yuruka wouldn't truly abandon them. And guess what? It worked wonders for her test scores. Rizu got 71 marks in modern Japan literature. The gang is getting ready to celebrate, but Furuhashi's exam is coming up, and she's sick right now. Usually, they could reschedule the exam, but they would deduct 20% if they did that. Just like Rizu, Furuhashi showed determination and decided to take the exam as scheduled. Yuruka and Yuruka stepped in and took care of their sick friend, nursing her back to health. During this time, Yuruka got to show off her cooking skills. With all the effort the group put in, they finally passed the exam with great scores. The headmaster was impressed, but Kurisu had a tough expression on her face when she saw the results. While Yuruka is getting ready for swimming practice, she finds herself in a bit of a pickle. Her teammates are pressuring her to confess her feelings to Yuruka. To solve this problem, they planned to go shopping after school. They dressed Yuruka in a cute pink dress and took her uniform so she would be forced to wear it. As she walked through town, she couldn't help but feel embarrassed, imagining how awkward it would be if Yuruka sees her like that. The luck doesn't seem to on her side as she bumped into Yuruka himself. Yuruka had to come up with an excuse, and they ended up spending the day together. They even go to a bookstore, where they acted like a couple and had a really sweet time. It reminded Yuruka of when she was a kid and dreamed of being a princess. They felt like a couple as they entered a competition for a toy set that Yuiga's sister wanted. Yuruka held Yuiga's hand, and despite just pretending, they ended up winning the competition. One night, Furuhashi is enjoying a nice warm shower at night when she decides to step on a weighing scale. She gets shocked by her actual weight and screams, realizing she has gained more weight than expected. The next day at school, Furuhashi feels dejected as she wanders the hallways, thinking about what she did to gain weight. She enters the room and both Yuruka and Rizu offer her snacks and udon. But not just a normal amount, a huge portion of food. Furuhashi is in the middle of eating when she realizes that this is the reason for her weight gain. She asks her friends why they didn't gain any weight themselves. Yuruka says it's because Rizu's nutrition goes to her large talents, and she has a fast metabolism. This makes Furuhashi determined to start a diet. Furuhashi's friends unintentionally aren't helping her much with her diet. Right after she decides to start a diet, Yuiga shows up with cheese tarts that his sister baked, and in the following days, each of her friends brings delicious food to share, like rare puddings, experimental udons, and even a whole cake. Poor Furuhashi tries to focus on her studies to ignore all the tempting treats, but it doesn't work out. During a study session with just the two of them, Yuiga notices that Furuhashi isn't feeling well. She tries to assure him that she's not getting sick like last time, but her hungry stomach growls loudly, giving her away. Furuhashi shares her concerns about her weight with Yuiga, who offers her a candy to cheer her up. He tries to reassure her by saying she doesn't look fat, but Furuhashi still feels insecure and invites him to feel her stomach. However, Yuiga gets distracted by her soft skin and accidentally blurts out dangerous, leading Furuhashi to misinterpret his words as a comment about her weight. Furuhashi ends up bringing lots of yummy food for a late-night snack, thinking that her brain will use up all the sugar and she won't gain any weight. Eventually, her weight goes back to normal. On the other hand, Rizu is facing some trouble with Sekiju Sawako, the president of the chemistry club. Sawako doesn't want Rizu to change her college course. She even tries to blackmail Rizu with a picture of her and Yuiga, thinking they are in love. When Rizu denies it, Sawako decides to spy on their next study session at Rizu's house. Sawako tries to make Rizu jealous by getting close to Yuiga, but Rizu is so focused on her studies that she doesn't even notice. And guess what? They end up getting kicked out of the house as they were making too much noise outside. Yuiga finds out that the president actually wanted to be friends with Rizu all along, even though she hid it pretty well. And you know what's interesting? She noticed that Rizu was blushing when Yuiga patted her on the head. It seems like the genius was nervous when she talked to Yuiga earlier because she ended up writing a whole page of prime numbers. Since then, Sawako started joining them whenever they studied in the library. On another note, Yuruka had her own little dilemma. She was in such a rush to get to school that she forgot to put on a top. To make things even more chaotic, they had a sports event on that very same day. She ended up wearing jackets and holding on to her talents as she was worried that Yuiga would notice it. At halftime, Yuiga checked up on her and gave her some encouraging words. Yuruka got all fired up again, and she played so well that her team tied the game. However, during the deciding shot, Yuiga jumped to block her, and they collided midair. And guess what? Her talents touched him again. And to make things even more embarrassing, they both fall to the ground. The next morning, Yuiga and the gang reach their destination, which is actually a study camp at Akino's Academy. Some students are excited about it, while others, like Yuiga's friends, aren't too thrilled. However, Yuiga himself is worried about picking the mountain yudo plant. He plans to bring some home for his sister, but before he can do that, a teacher pulls him away. Rizu notices everything and Furuhashi asks her why she's staring at Yuiga. She becomes super conscious about looking and talking to him. She tries to deny it, but she gets flustered when Yuiga talks to other girls. She even blames it on not having enough calcium. And then, when she can't reach the buttons, Yuiga comes to help her. Instead of being grateful, she gets all sour-faced and excuses herself. Later on, she realizes she was being mean and remembers that Yuiga wanted to get some mountain yudo. Rizu goes to pick some mountain yudo, but then it starts raining. She tries to go back, but she forgets the way. Meanwhile, Yuiga notices the rain and remembers that Rizu went out earlier. He goes searching for her in the forest. Rizu, on the other hand, decides to wait by a tree, hoping to be rescued. She even imagines Yuiga coming to save her, but she doesn't know he's actually there. After searching in the rain for a while, Rizu finally spots Yuiga. Blushing, she hands him the mountain yudo. Later, Yuiga asks Rizu to come down from the slope, but she slips and falls into his arms. They accidentally kiss and both of them are really surprised. After that, they start ignoring each other, especially Rizu. The next morning, they get punished and have to clean the girls' bathroom together. They start talking again, but this time it's because Rizu made a funny mistake. Instead of hanging the do not enter sign outside the bath, she accidentally hung it around her neck. And guess what? The bath is suddenly filled with girls getting ready to take a bath. Yuiga is freaking out because if he's caught in the girl's bath, he'll be in big trouble. However, Rizu promises to fix the situation and tells him to hide in the sauna. Rizu couldn't come up with a good excuse, so both Furuhashi and Yuruka ended up going inside. They even convinced Rizu to join them. Yuiga had to think fast and ended up hiding under the bench. Just then, Yuruka left because it was too hot, and Furuhashi followed Rizu after Sawako made up a story about a meteor shower. Finally, Yuiga saw his chance and left the bath, but on the other side, Yuruka was waiting. As she sees him, her towel falls to the ground. Instead of being mad, she thought Yuiga was just a hallucination and went back into the bath. The next morning, Yuiga and Rizu made up and agreed that their accidental kiss didn't really count. Yuiga finds himself in Sensei's office, desperately trying to explain himself when Furuhashi comes in to help, thinking it's about something inappropriate that happened between them. Unfortunately, her explanation is about when he accidentally touched her in the library and saw her plot when she was sick. And guess what? Yuruka and Rizu also show up, each with their own excuse of an encounter with Yuiga. Yuruka talks about getting carried away in the swimming pool, while Rizu mentions him accidentally being in the girl's bath. You can imagine that this didn't help Yuiga at all, but surprisingly, it didn't make things worse either. Surprisingly, Kurisu forgives Yuiga because of the concerns the girls showed, but she still doesn't think he's a good tutor. She doesn't believe in encouraging them to pursue impossible dreams. Kurisu even mentioned that she knew what was going to happen because she's been through something similar, but she didn't explain it much. Instead of feeling down about what she said, Yuiga takes her hand and notices bruises and wounds on it. This makes him realize that Kurisu was also looking for Rizu when she got lost in the forest, and that's why she knows about the kiss. Yuiga calls Kurisu a good person, even though she tries to brush it off. However, Kurisu smiles when she sees Yuiga with the girls. Afterwards, the loser actually gets some good news when he's giving his reports to the headmaster. He gets praised because the girls are improving their grades. This puts a big smile on his face that doesn't even fade away when they're in class. Of course, his friends think it's because he's spending time with the girls, and they even speculate that he might be secretly dating one of them. Things get messy when one of his friends figures out that Yuiga kissed one of the girls, and Yuruka overhears it in the hallway. Yuruka feels really down after hearing that and can't even focus during her one-on-one session with Yuiga. When she asks about the kiss, Yuiga can't deny it, and as a result, Yuruka runs away, making up an excuse about having club practice, even though Yuiga knows she's lying. After that, Yuruka sits under a tree with tears in her eyes and admits that it's her fault for letting things drag on since middle school. Luckily, her kind friend Furuhashi finds her and they have a heart-to-heart talk. Yuruka tries to hide her love problems by talking about a friend in a similar situation, but Furuhashi figures out that she's actually talking about herself and Yuiga. Furuhashi encourages Yuruka to go for it and assures her that she'll support her 100%. Just when things seem a bit better, Rizu shows up and sees them hugging. As Yuruka leaves, she overhears false rumors about Yuiga. Instead of confessing her feelings, Yuruka decides to head home. Interestingly, Rizu also hears these rumors and starts dropping her books. Furuhashi, who is good at reading people, gets the idea that Rizu might be the one Yuiga kissed. Later on, Yuruka notices that even her swimming teammates are starting to notice something. It seems like history is repeating itself, as they decide to help her once again. Meanwhile, Yuiga approaches Furuhashi to see if she has any idea about what's going on with Rizu and Yuruka. Instead of revealing that both girls have feelings for him, Furuhashi advises him to be mindful of the girls' feelings. After thinking it over, Yuiga decides to keep a bit of distance from the girls, just in case they have feelings for someone else. At that moment, Yuruka shows up with a shorter skirt. Following her friend's advice, she asks Yuiga if they can walk home together. Unfortunately, their walk home becomes awkward as Yuruka tries to get close to Yuiga while he tries to maintain a respectful distance. Eventually, they arrive at a shrine and both decide to pray, but for different reasons. Yuiga prays for academic success, while Yuruka prays for their romance to blossom. By luck, it starts raining and they seek shelter in a small house near the temple. Yuruka quickly falls asleep after confessing to Yuiga that all she prayed for was a successful romance with him. Well, turns out Yuruka was just pretending to be asleep. She learned that trick from her swimming friends. She then feels something patting her head and licking. She thought it was another swimming technique, but it turns out it was just some cats seeking shelter. When the rain stops, they head down the stairs. However, Yuiga gets distracted by Yuruka's plot again. Yuiga admits that it's hard not to stare, so Yuruka snuggles closer to him, but Yuiga reminds her that she should only wear that in front of the guy she likes. Yuruka, knowing exactly what she's doing, smiles and agrees. The next day, Furuhashi goes to Yuiga for advice and lessons. It has become a regular thing for them, but this time Furuhashi was the one teaching while Yuiga took notes. They decided to go to class together, but as Furuhashi was walking, she suddenly tripped and fell right into Yuiga's arms. It looked like they were hugging, which worried Furuhashi. Unfortunately, Rizu saw them too. She was also on her way to school and seemed angry as she approached. Furuhashi thought Rizu was mad about what she saw, so she came up with a plan for Yuiga to hold hands with Rizu on their way to the classroom. It seems like Furuhashi misunderstood Rizu's expression and thought she was still angry. In an attempt to make it up to her, Furuhashi pushed Yuiga towards Rizu, hoping for a hug, but it didn't go as planned. Instead, Yuiga's face ended up in Rizu's talons, and they both got scolded. Turns out, Rizu's dad had broken her glasses, which is why she had a scowl on her face. She wasn't angry about the hug at all, if she even saw it. A few days later, Yuiga was walking home alone while studying. Suddenly, he noticed a cat stuck in a tree. Being the kind-hearted person he is, he tried to help the cat get down. That's when Kurisu came by and saw what he was doing. Surprisingly, she decided to help too. As the cat jumped off the tree, she gracefully caught it. Unfortunately, she ended up spraining her ankle when she landed on a rock. With that, Yuiga has no other option but to assist Kurisu in getting back home. Even though she insists that she was fine, the commotion in her apartment suggested otherwise. Yuiga decided to enter, and to his surprise, his strict teacher's place was quite messy, which was unexpected. Despite the situation, Kurisu kindly offered him some coffee and even helped him study. However, things took an awkward turn when Yuiga accidentally stumbled upon Kurisu's clothes. It created a moment of discomfort, but Kurisu suddenly turned towards Yuiga and confessed that she couldn't keep it a secret any longer. As it turns out, she was referring to the mess in her apartment and offered to clean it up. After they finished tidying, her place became spotless. During the process, Yuiga discovered trophies and pictures of Kurisu from her ballerina days. It explained why she had such views, mentioning that she would have preferred to focus on her talents rather than her dreams. Even though Yuiga didn't disagree with his teacher's perspective, he believed that he would regret not helping those who were less talented rather than doing nothing at all. After leaving Kurisu's apartment, Yuiga takes a moment to tell the teacher that she is actually a kind person. On the other hand, Kurisu was just nervous because it was the first time she had a man in her room. Naturally, Yuiga shared what happened with Furuhashi and the girls. On the other hand, Furuhashi is so worried about Yuiga spending time at a girl's apartment that she took him to a tree and pretended it was a task to help him understand girls. Unfortunately, as it happens in high school, people who saw this misunderstood the situation and thought that Furuhashi and Yuiga were dating. Later, Furuhashi's classmates kept bothering her about it. Unfortunately, Yuiga didn't do much to stop the rumor when he mentioned that he and Furuhashi have a special connection and even picked her up from their room. However, her classmates, led by Kashima, decided to secretly observe them to see if they were really dating. However, upon seeing them study together, the spying ended abruptly. In fact, they ended up studying so well that the rumor fizzled out completely. Yuiga proudly shows off his new smartphone, which his mother won in a contest. Even though the whole family used it, he's happy to have something that will help with studying. However, it turns out, he's not very good with technology. Luckily, Yuruka comes to the rescue and offers to help him. Yuiga asks Yuruka to find effective study methods, and she discovers something interesting. Studying in the bathtub can actually make it more effective. With that, each member of their study group goes home with an idea to try. Yuiga himself decides to give it a shot and uses his phone while in the bathtub. However, he didn't learn his lesson or read the manual. As a result, he ends up having some embarrassing moments with his friends. First, he accidentally texts Furuhashi while she's in the bath, which makes her feel shy about texting a boy in that situation. He then tries using his phone again and unexpectedly calls Rizu, and her dad picks up the call, trying to intimidate and thank Yuiga at the same time. Nevertheless, when Rizu takes the phone, things get even more awkward. They both realize they're talking on the phone being commando. To make matters worse, Yuiga accidentally calls Yuruka too. This time, when Yuruka tries to put the call on speaker, she accidentally opens a video call. Unfortunately, the phone falls into the water because of the mishap. Despite the phone mishap, the group continues with their studies. Yuiga notices that Yuruka is doing really well in her studies. He encourages her to keep up the good work because her competition is getting closer. Yuruka is always fired up and determined, but her teammates remind her to take care of herself and not overdo it. It seems like she struggles to find a balance between her studies and taking care of herself. She's worried about performing well in both areas, so she ends up studying late at night even when she's exhausted. The next morning, as Yuiga and Yuruka are walking to school, Yuiga notices that Yuruka doesn't look well and is having trouble walking. Suddenly, she collapses, and Yuiga rushes to take her to the infirmary. While Yuruka is resting, Yuiga compliments her for all the hard work she's been putting in and mentions that whoever she likes is one lucky person. Just as things start to get sweet, Yuruka stirs in her sleep and reaches out to hug Yuiga, leaving him frozen in surprise. Before they can enjoy the moment, Yuruka's swimming team enters the room, and Yuiga has to quickly hide under the bed. While they were at the infirmary, Yuiga had a surprising revelation from one of Yuruka's friends. It turns out that Yuruka actually likes him. Yuiga is taken aback and didn't know how to react to this newfound information. Later at night, while walking Yuruka home despite the awkwardness, they ends up spending some quality time together. They even go out to eat ramen on their way home. However, during their conversation, Yuruka asks if Yuiga is already in a relationship. Without thinking, Yuiga gives a harsh comment about not having time for that. He immediately regrets his words when he sees Yuruka's reaction. In an attempt to clarify the situation, he also asks if he is the one she likes. Yuruka turned back to look at him, and with a face that seems to hide the truth, she tells him that he isn't. Later, Yuiga is studying when he unexpectedly runs into Kurisu again. This time, she's sitting outside her apartment on a hot day. Yuiga tries to ignore her, but she grabs onto him and pulls him into her messy apartment. To make things even more interesting, there's a cockroach that scares Kurisu. She jumps into Yuiga's arms, and well, let's just say he's in a bit of a tight spot. Since Kurisu is too afraid of the bug, Yuiga takes it upon himself to get rid of it. He quickly takes care of the cockroach, but Kurisu asks him to stay because it's still hiding. She even says she'll do anything for him. Yuiga decides to stay and study a bit longer. Time flies, and before they know it, it's nighttime. Kurisu offers Yuiga dinner since she already ordered the food. Right after Yuiga and Kurisu settle down for dinner, the doorbell rings. It's Rizu with a delivery. Now, things get a bit awkward because Rizu joins them for dinner, and there's tension in the air. Rizu wants Yuiga to spill the beans about what's going on, but Kurisu is embarrassed and doesn't want him to say anything. To lighten the mood, Yuiga suggests playing Rizu's card game. Unfortunately, it doesn't really help because Kurisu keeps winning and Rizu isn't great at the game. Yuiga then takes the opportunity to explain that Kurisu is actually kind and caring when she's not around. Rizu doesn't seem to see it until she witnesses Kurisu being terrified by the cockroach. Rizu, being fearless, casually smacks it with a piece of paper. As they head home, Rizu thanks Yuiga because he made her realize that she should consider her old tutor's feelings too. A few days later, Yuiga's mom gets really sick and can't go to work. Yuiga steps up and takes her shift to help out. However, his mom works at a fancy shop and it's not really a place suited for guys like him. Despite knowing it, he still goes for it. And guess what? His co-worker sees how embarrassed he is and makes him wear the store mascot costume. Talk about feeling self-conscious. But hey, at least he thought no one he knows would come into the shop. Well, that hope didn't last long because Yuruka and Rizu walk right in. And since his co-worker had to leave, Yuiga is the only one there to help them. After Yuruka and Rizu left, Kurisu actually got stuck in one of the dressing rooms and called out to Yuiga for help. At that moment, Furuhashi made her grand entrance, feeling embarrassed about shopping with Yuruka. She then asked the mascot for different sizes, thinking they magically grow. And guess what? She was the only one who figured out it was Yuiga and the mascot when she came out of the dressing room. Luckily, his co-worker came back just in time to take off the mascot head for Furuhashi, who had this dead expression on her face. Man, I recognize that dead face. It's from memes. Summer is here, but instead of relaxing on beach vacations, students are busy studying for entrance exams. Yuiga, being the hardworking guy he is, has joined a prep school. And guess what? The school is covering his expenses because of his awesome tutoring skills and the girls' high grade. Talk about a win-win situation. Right before class starts, a small, purple-haired girl approaches Yuiga and asks to sit next to him. He thinks she's too young for the class, but she insists and politely asks him to move a little. Yuiga assumes she's in middle school and got mixed up. However, she gets mad and shows her ID. Turns out, Kaminami, who he thought was 19, is actually his senior from the academy. She didn't make it into med school on her first try, so now she's in her second year of reviews. Once the class started, Yuiga realized that keeping up with the lessons in the prep school wasn't as easy as he thought. Studying diligently wasn't enough to magically boost his grades. By the time lunch break rolled around, he felt totally drained. Just then Kaminami came to the rescue. She lent him some notes to copy and even gave him advice on how to handle studying in tough situations. Thanks to her, Yuiga managed to get through the day. However, when it was time to leave, Kaminami had already gone, and Yuiga missed the chance to thank her. As Yuiga walks without really paying attention, he suddenly realizes he has no clue where the train station is or where he even is. And out of nowhere, two big guys appear and offer to take him to his desired destination. Luckily, it isn't some kind of scheme. Instead, they drag him into a maid cafe. Now, here's the thing. Yuiga feels pretty uncomfortable with all those girls dressed up as cute maids fussing over him, especially because it costs money. He makes a beeline for the exit, but just as he's about to escape, a maid who is running late enters the cafe, and surprisingly, it's Kaminami. It is revealed that Kaminami is working a part-time gig to pay for her med school expenses, and she's actually pretty popular at the cafe. Just like the girls he tutored, Kaminami struggles with science, so Yuiga decides to stick around and help her study. He even comes back the next day, all because Kaminami's workmates asked him to. On his way home, he bumps into Kaminami's dad. And guess who comes running after him in her maid outfit? Yup, it's Kaminami. She forgot her train pass or something. Afterwards, Kaminami's dad, who's a doctor, is actually a nice guy. But he and Kaminami have a little argument about her pursuing medicine. However, Yuiga supports Kaminami's decision and tells her that she should give it a shot to get out of that whole maid outfit situation. They come up with a little white lie and say that Yuiga is Kaminami's boyfriend. Later, the girls end up bumping into Kaminami and Yuiga at a restaurant. They all end up enrolling in the same prep school, more time to spend together, and who knows what kind of adventures await them there. Yuiga explains that the girls are his students and he's actually proud of them for enrolling in the school themselves. Unfortunately, they also found it hard during their first day, but like what she did for Yuiga, Kaminami helps them. Just as they're about to go home, rain starts to pour, and they decide to stay at Kaminami's house. Furuhashi thanks Kaminami's father, and their topic moves towards Yuiga, which is how she finds out that apparently Yuiga is dating Kaminami. She confronts him about it, but fortunately, Kaminami herself clears up the confusion. Based on her reactions, Kaminami theorizes that maybe Furuhashi has feelings for Yuiga. The teachers are having a night out, but Kurisu, as usual, declined their invitation to go to another club. On her way home, she's thinking about how these kinds of situations are never comfortable for her. Just then, she sees Yuiga hanging out at the entrance of a maid cafe. Kurisu grabs her student's shoulder and asks him what he's doing there. At that moment, Kaminami shows up and explains the whole situation. Kurisu is surprised to see her old student, and she starts teasing Kaminami about working at the maid cafe and her goal of becoming a doctor. However, Kurisu seems to be more worried about getting Yuiga out of the cafe and the whole neighborhood. Kaminami, being a playful teaser, grabs Yuiga and says maybe Kurisu doesn't like his choice of girlfriend. Yet, Kaminami still jokes about being Yuiga's girlfriend while Kurisu grabs his other arm, and now Yuiga becomes the rope in their little tug of war. Poor guy. All he wanted to do was study, but their commotion caused more trouble than they expected. Suddenly, Kurisu trips and falls onto one of the cafe employees, spraining their ankle. Talk about bad luck. Kaminami takes charge and makes Kurisu help out as a temporary maid. That means Kurisu has to wear a maid outfit and practice greeting customers with Yuiga. But she mostly ends up cleaning instead of interacting with customers. Despite everything, Yuiga enjoys seeing Kurisu in the maid outfit. However, cleaning isn't Kurisu's strong suit. She trips and makes a mess, leaving Yuiga to clean up. Despite the mishap, the night is a success, and they celebrate with drinks. Kaminami shares how much Kurisu has influenced her life. Even though Kurisu was always against her dreams, she became the reason for Kaminami to rebel against other people's expectations. Unfortunately, they didn't get a chance to personally praise Kurisu. On the way home, Kurisu accidentally took a sip of alcohol and got drunk from just that one sip. Yuiga had to carry her on his back because she was praising every student she had, especially him. So, a few days later, Kurisu had a bit of a problem with her work wardrobe. Turns out, she didn't have any suitable clothes because she usually just wore jumpsuits at home. She searched through her closet, feeling a bit anxious, and guess what she found? Her old school uniform. She thought she is safe because it is summer and she doesn't expect anyone she knew to see her at school. But, unfortunately, her appearance caught the attention of the police when she gets into her car. Thankfully, Yuiga came to the rescue and saw Kurisu in that situation. He knew exactly why she was wearing her old clothes. Kurisu was kind enough to give him a ride to school, but she was in a hurry to avoid any more embarrassment. With Yuiga's assistance, they managed to accomplish what they needed to do quickly. However, Kurisu's earlier speedy driving depleted her car's fuel tank, so they had to walk home. Later on, Yuiga noticed Kurisu looking at a group of students enjoying ice cream. This made him curious about her high school life. Kurisu shared that she didn't have much time to go out and have fun because she was really focused on figure skating. Yuiga, being the sweet guy he is, went to get them each a cone of ice cream and they sat on a bench together, having a nice time. But then, they spotted Furuhashi and Rizu buying ice cream too. Oh no, Yuiga and Kurisu quickly hid behind the bench and in the bushes, hoping their friends wouldn't see them. But, to their surprise, Furuhashi and Rizu ended up sitting right where they were hiding. It was so hard for Yuiga and Kurisu to stay quiet. First, Kurisu accidentally broke a twig, and then, when they tried to snuggle closer to hide, the ice cream melted and made a mess on her neck, causing her to gasp. Of course, Furuhashi heard the noise and went to check it out. In a quick move, Yuiga pretended to kiss Kurisu to make it seem like they were just having a romantic moment. It worked like a charm, and Furuhashi and Rizu left them alone. After a few days, Yuruka and Yuiga are studying together, but things become really awkward between them. They couldn't even have a proper conversation. With that, they both decided to seek help from their friend Furuhashi, who always seems to know what's going on. It's quite cute how Yuiga even used the excuse of his friend being in a similar situation when describing him to Yuruka. Both Yuiga and Yurika made the same excuses for their awkwardness, and it all came down to when Yuiga asked if he was the guy Yurika liked, and she denied it. Despite not wanting to take sides, Furuhashi suggests that Yuiga and Yurika meet up and have a conversation. They follow her advice and sit together on a bench. Instead of talking, they both end up texting Furuhashi at the same time, seeking her help. Little did they know, Furuhashi was actually sitting right behind them in disguise. Unfortunately, no matter what topic Furuhashi suggests, they struggle to have a proper conversation. Just when things seem hopeless, Yuiga compliments Yurika, saying she looks cute with her ponytail. Interestingly, the next day, Furuhashi also wears a ponytail. When Yuiga thanks her for her advice, they start talking again, just like they used to. Later on, Yurika's big swimming tournament is just around the corner. Even though Yuiga has summer classes, he's there to support his friend. Yurika shows off her amazing skills in the pool and shines during the match. Unfortunately, their team gets disqualified because of a false start by a second-year member. Surprisingly, Yurika and the other third-year students are pretty chill about it. Yurika herself stays strong, even though it's her last tournament. When Yuiga asks how he can cheer her up, she suggests hanging out together tonight. They both sneak into their old middle school and start reminiscing about the time they spent there. Yurika shares how she used to notice Yuiga every day and even practice saying his name in the mirror. They make their way to the pool and relax while having a heartfelt conversation. Yuiga remembers that Yurika denied being in love with him before, so he suggests practicing confessing with him, hoping to help her express her feelings to the person she likes. Yurika agrees, but only if he calls her by her first name. As soon as he says Yurika, she confesses her feelings, but it doesn't feel genuine. They end up tumbling into the pool, and when Yuiga calls her by her first name again, she blushes and hides underwater. The festival is finally here and Yuiga and his family are thrilled to be there, even though his mom feels a bit guilty about him taking time away from study. However, Yuiga reassures her and they all have a great time. They unexpectedly run into Yurika and Furuhashi, who are both wearing beautiful kimonos. Furuhashi asks Yuiga if they look good, secretly hoping he'll compliment Yurika again, and he does. Even though he mentions that Furuhashi looks natural in the kimonos, it doesn't bother Yurika. Just hearing that he thinks she's beautiful is enough to make her happy. When Yuiga's mom decides to let him go off with his friends, Furuhashi pretends to have forgotten something so that Yurika and Yuiga can be alone. Unfortunately, they didn't get many chances to develop their relationship beyond friendship. After enjoying their time at the festival, Yurika and Yuiga notice that Rizu in her father's udon stall is overwhelmed with customers. They decide to lend a hand. Yurika helps out in the kitchen with Rizu's father, while Yuiga assists Rizu with the deliveries. Meanwhile, Furuhashi is left alone, enjoying her food and gazing at the beautiful night sky. Slowly but surely, they finish all the deliveries. As Rizu moves ahead, Yuiga spots something really strange happening at one of the stalls. There's this lady with pink hair at the festival who's really good at the shooting games. Turns out, it's actually their teacher. She gets embarrassed and ends up slipping and hurting herself. Her mask breaks and she scrapes her knee. With that, Yuiga has to give her a piggyback ride to the infirmary again. When they arrive, they find Kaminami and her dad there. They're both super busy, so Yuiga pitches in to help. And guess who his first patient is? His teacher, who ends up making some funny sounds during treatment. The festival is closing down, and Furuhashi is still there. Turns out, she was so captivated by the stars that she lost track of time. She hurries down the stairs and comes across a crying child who is lost. Being the kind person she is, she decides to make sure the child gets home safely, even if it means she might miss the last train. Yuiga is also running late because he's receiving thanks from his supposed father-in-law. And guess what? He also stumbles upon a lost child. And it turns out that this child and the one Furuhashi helped are actually sisters. The two heroes end up meeting at the station as they both miss the last train while helping the kids. They decide to wait for a taxi and even try walking to Main Street to find another way of getting around. Just then Furuhashi's feet start hurting from walking in sandals, so they come up with a new plan. They decide to check into an inn while pretending to be brother and sister. But when they find out there's only one room left, things get even more awkward, especially since the room only has one futon. The innkeeper apologizes for not having enough futons. But since Yuiga and Furuhashi are pretending to be siblings, it's all good. As expected, they feel super awkward about the whole situation. Things reach a boiling point when their backs accidentally touch under the blanket. To break the tension, Yuiga tries to come up with a topic. But then he looks out the window and sees the breathtaking night sky. He can't help but call Furuhashi over to join him. They spend their time stargazing. And Furuhashi shares a special memory about her mother and a favorite book. Her mother used to say that even though she's gone, she's still up there in the stars, just like the ones in the book. That's why Furuhashi is so fascinated by astrology. After sharing these cherished memories, they fall asleep snuggled close together like lovers. The next morning on the train, the duo is super awkward because of what happened last night. The following night, Yuiga finishes his quota of duties and assigns the three girls different kinds of homework according to their capabilities, each in the areas they are having difficulty with. He places his pen on the table and thinks of what he can do to enhance Furuhashi's comprehension in mathematics. He remembers her explaining about grasping the gist of math problems, as he deems her to be progressing well at solving equations. He then considers Rizu's situation, recalling how she explains her progress in identifying the feelings of characters she analyzed yesterday. He decides that it is best for Yuruka to have more readings to enhance her skills efficiently. On the next day, Rizu approaches the receptionist at school to view her practice exam results. As she pulls the paper out of the envelope, sweat drips down her face. She is prepared to see straight A grades, but instead finds straight E grades on the paper. Her eyes widen with shock, and a faint expression of doom crosses her face. She rushes to the room where Furuhashi and Yuruka are. Before her arrival, the three girls in the room had been discussing sizes. Rizu arrives looking dejected, and the room falls silent as they wait for her to share the news. When she does, the girls misunderstand her, thinking she's talking about cup sizes. They console her wrongly, further adding to her distress. Rizu then asks about their marks, which Furuhashi and Yuruka openly discuss, leading to further misunderstanding. Eventually, they console her but mistakenly believe Yuiga is a silent creep, based on Furuhashi's earlier words. During Yuiga's tutoring session with Yuruka at her family's restaurant, her mind is preoccupied with the idea of whether Yuiga is indeed a creep. She becomes extremely disturbed when Yuiga discusses metaphors and blushes when he asks about her practice exam grades. She even mistakenly believes Yuiga wants to touch her talents, so she allows him to do it, leading to embarrassment and being scolded by her father. One day while studying at the maid cafe, all maids tell Yuiga that their business has started cleaning houses as a side gig. They got a bunch of requests from customers, but they don't have enough staff. They ask Yuiga to help Kaminami with the customer requests for the day. Yuiga agrees as he'll get paid for it. He then joins Kaminami, who drives the motorcycle fast, ready to clean houses. She apologizes for the inconvenience, but he tells her that he's totally fine with it and actually benefits from the job. As soon as they arrive at their first house, surprisingly, it's none other than Kirisu's, who is extremely defensive of her reputation as a teacher. She tries to pay them to cancel the cleaning service. However, Kaminami refuses to do so. As she tries to go in, Kirisu pulls Yuiga inside instead. Yuiga cleans the room in just 30 minutes before Kirisu finally lets Kaminami in. Upon seeing how shiny and clean it is, she gets even more upset. Yuiga tries to comfort her and convinces her to move on to the next customer, without wasting any more time. They head to the next house, and unfortunately, it's Yuruka's place. Her mom is sick, so she couldn't take care of the house. When Yuruka opens the door, she's surprised to see Kaminami and Yuiga there. They quickly go inside, only to find a clean kitchen and dinner prepared by Yuruka herself. While they're eating, Kaminami gets angry again, complaining about not having to do any work while still getting paid. Yuruka explains that she's just really pumped up and feels pressured to clean and cook because of their presence. Yuiga tries to convince Kaminami that maybe the next house will be the one she can clean. However, as they reach the third house, they find out that it is Furuhashi's residence. Both sides are totally shocked. Furuhashi starts explaining the situation in her kitchen to Kaminami, but then she realizes that Yuiga looks confused. She thinks he sees her as a typical girl who can't cook or clean. Remembering her messy kitchen, she doesn't want Yuiga to see it, so she quickly gives them the cleaning payment, apologizes for the inconvenience, and bows down. Kaminami really wants to go in and clean. However, Furuhashi manages to keep them out of the house for a while and orders noodles from Rizu's restaurant. After they leave, Kaminami feels really down and starts crying. Yuiga tries to comfort her and tells her that he's going in the opposite direction. Just then, Kaminami grabs onto his shirt and begs him to let her clean his house. The next day, Kirisu gets mad at Furuhashi for dozing off in class. She's preparing a test for tomorrow, but her laptop suddenly shuts down and she loses all her work. Now she's sleep-deprived and trying her best not to fall asleep during the exams. She wants to maintain her reputation as a good teacher and doesn't want to embarrass herself in front of the class, especially since she scolded Furuhashi for napping. Later, there's an assembly, and Kirisu has to sit on stage with the other teachers. She's struggling to stay awake, and just when she's about to doze off, Yuiga sneezes really loudly and wakes her up. After that, Kirisu goes home but loses her key. Later, while searching for it, she comes across Yuiga, and they both end up searching for hours, only to find out that the key was in Kirisu's bag the whole time. Finally, Kirisu can enter her home, but as she enters, she falls asleep at her entrance while Yuiga has to carry her to bed. One night, Rizu sees that her bangs are getting really long, so she decides to cut them a bit. While she is doing so, her dad walks in by accident. She ends up cutting her bangs too short and now she looks like a cute little doll version of herself. The next day, Rizu is walking to school when she sees her friends Furuhashi and Yuruka in the distance. They wave and start walking towards her. They look amazed and a little confused by her new look. When Rizu faces them, there's a moment of silence while Furuhashi asks about her bangs and says they look really good on her. All of a sudden, Yuiga shows up and greets everyone. But when he tries to greet Rizu, she quickly turns her head away and runs off, leaving Yuiga confused. When Rizu gets to school, she goes straight to the restroom to fix her hair dilemma. Just then Sawako steps in as she wants to talk about their new hairstyles for the new semester. However, when Sawako sees Rizu's new hairstyle, she's speechless. Meanwhile, Rizu thinks that Sawako's reaction means her hair doesn't look good on her. During their tutoring sessions, Rizu decides to wear a funny Japanese mask to hide her face. Yuiga gets worried and thinks that maybe Rizu doesn't like him. Out of nowhere, Furuhashi takes off Rizu's mask, which freaks her out. She quickly covers her face in front of Yuiga. When Yuiga sees her face, he doesn't even notice her new bangs while Rizu screams in disbelief. Yuiga tries to guess what changes he should notice so he doesn't make her feel bad but is too clueless to figure it out. They end up walking home together and Yuiga tries to comfort Rizu. Yuiga tries to match Rizu's pace but accidentally calls her by her first name. Surprised, Rizu blushes and looks back at Yuiga. He confronts her, wanting to make one last guess. Rizu knows he won't be able to guess any changes, feeling his lack of interest. Unexpectedly, Yuiga notices her increased facial expressions. Blushing, Rizu smiles and agrees with him. On the next day, Sawako notices Rizu's worn-out pencil case and suggests buying a new one tomorrow. Rizu agrees but struggles to pick a style. Sawako eagerly suggests hanging out and planning activities. As they prepare to buy the pencil case, Sawako spots Yuiga and, knowing Rizu likes him, crumples her plans and asks Yuiga to accompany Rizu. However, Yuiga learned about Sawako's excitement from her tweets and understands Rizu's influence on her confidence. Sawako, unaware Rizu is nearby, confesses her feelings of admiration. Rizu appreciates Sawako's positive impact. One day, Sawako suggests a new look for the new semester. She shows off her pigtails to Rizu. Later on, Rizu goes to the library for her tutoring sessions, but she can't stop thinking about the girls with their new hairstyles. She asks them about it, wanting to start the semester fresh. Furuhashi suggests going to a salon instead of cutting her own hair. Rizu keeps thinking about Furuhashi's suggestion until she can't resist anymore. She decides to go to the salon for a new hairstyle. Later, Rizu decides to schedule her tutoring sessions with Yuiga in the late afternoon. This way, she can go to the salon before their session and try something new for herself. A few hours later, Rizu finally heads to the salon. Meanwhile, Yuiga starts to worry because Rizu is running late for their tutoring session, so he decides to send her a text to check on her. However, she walks towards Yuiga with long hair extensions, a blue dress, heels, and sparkly contact lenses. Yuiga is totally caught off guard by this stunning young lady approaching him. His heart starts racing, and he panics a bit. He doesn't even realize it's Rizu. I can't blame him though, her transformation is really different. He's so rizzed by her beauty that when she speaks to him like she always does, he gets even more flustered. He tries to divert his attention to his phone, hoping to text Rizu for help so he can focus on other things. The day comes to an end and Yuiga walks home with a worried look on his face. He's wondering where Rizu is and why she didn't show up for their tutoring sessions. Plus, he feels all flustered and awkward as he's still walking with that beautiful girl from earlier. He's even wondering if she's following him by chance. While he's lost in his thoughts, Rizu suddenly speaks. It startles him so much that he jumps and leans against a fence. He scolds her for inviting him to her house, saying it's not respectful for a girl to do that. Eventually, he realizes that the girl is definitely Rizu, and he even starts thinking about the things they were discussing earlier about transformations. The next day, Rizu and Furuhashi are getting ready to throw away some trash when they spot Yuiga and Yuruka together in a quiet area at the back of their classroom. Furuhashi starts thinking about a love confession. But then Yuruka surprises everyone by suddenly speaking in English. Turns out, she's in a tutoring session with Yuiga for the English language. In the morning, Yuiga and Yuruka are having their English tutoring session. Yuiga praises Yuruka for her improvement in grammar, but suggests that she needs more practice to become fluent. With that, he comes up with an idea. They should speak English with each other throughout the day. They make a bet that the first person to speak in Japanese has to buy food for the other. Yuruka agrees to the challenge and they continue speaking in English. However, when a dog approaches Yuruka, Yuiga gives up and says he can't do it anymore. Yuruka takes it as a cue to start speaking in Japanese again. Clearly, it turns out that Yuriko lost the game, but Yuiga still ends up buying the food for them. Afterwards, Yuriko waits outside the convenience store when two Englishmen approach her and ask for directions. She tries her best to give them directions in English, and surprisingly, they compliment her appearance instead. Yuiga comes over to protect Yuriko, but he stutters in English just like she did earlier. Eventually, the Englishmen leave after thinking that Yuiga is Yuriko's boyfriend, while Yuriko feels so embarrassed that she quickly runs away. Later, Furuhashi goes to Yuiga's house for their tutoring session. It's already nighttime when they finish studying math equations. They say goodbye, and as Yuiga walks her home, he suddenly remembers that he has a present for Furuhashi's birthday, but she reminds him that her birthday is actually tomorrow. He feels a bit embarrassed but still shyly gives her the gift. She feels really nice about receiving an unexpected gift from a guy for the first time. After thanking him, she didn't realize that she would feel a bit confused about the present he gave her. Suddenly, there's a big fight happening right in front of her. Earlier, at Yuiga's house, his sister asks their mom about something she wanted to buy in the morning. It turns out that it was actually a top, and Yuiga accidentally gave it to Furuhashi since it was in a similar bag with his sister's stuff. The following day, Furuhashi wears the top while feeling nervous. Yuiga greets her and walks with her to school. He asks her how comfortable his gift is, but this only adds to her misconceptions about what the gift actually is. During their tutoring session in the library, Yuriko and Rizu offer their support to Furuhashi. She thanks them, but they suddenly ask her about Yuiga's gift. Her face turns as red as a ripe tomato because of all the mixed emotions she's feeling. She keeps stopping Yuiga from telling them about his gift, and all he can manage to say is the letter B, referring to the ballpoint pen. They talk alone and realize that they have different thoughts and feelings about the situation. Later that afternoon, Yuiga realizes his mistake and rushes home to get the ballpoint pen he was supposed to give Furuhashi. He apologizes for the misunderstanding, and everything is resolved. He then sits in front of his mother and studies while she complains about the lack of staff at her workplace. Without hesitation, Yuiga volunteers to take her place tomorrow, not knowing what he's getting himself into. Yuiga didn't have a choice and had to step up when the manager's daughter got sick. With even fewer staff members, he had to do the massaging too. He kept reminding himself that he is doing it for his family and his mother. Still wearing the mascot costume, he enters the first client's room, which turns out to be Kurisu. He feels nervous and shivers as he approaches her, asking if she wants a lower back massage to relieve her muscle pain. He tries his best, and to his surprise, Kurisu responds with a mix of pain and satisfaction, rating his massage skills as 5 stars. Just then, the assistant manager walks in and compliments him for doing a great job. Things start to look up for Yuiga when he receives compliments from Furuhashi and Rizu while massaging them in the mascot costume. However, his luck runs out when his next client, Kaminami, initially dismisses the idea of a massage. However, once Yuiga starts massaging her, she can't help but feel amazing. In the midst of it all, Kaminami accidentally removes the mascot head, causing a bit of a scene. Yuriko, who was with the girls, becomes curious and peeks into the room, witnessing the slightly embarrassing sight. A few days later, Kurisu decides to take a nice warm bath to start her day off right. However, the heater in her apartment floor turned out to be broken. With no other choice, she heads to the public bath, where she coincidentally meets Kaminami. She playfully teases Kurisu for taking a bath in a public place, and Kurisu explains her situation. When Yuiga and his 2 younger siblings see Kurisu and the others, they join in the conversation. They all decide to head inside the public bath together. Before that, Yuiga's sister asks Kurisu to marry her brother and compliments her beauty. Kurisu gets a bit embarrassed but thanks the kid for the kind words. Meanwhile, Kurisu and Kaminami are in the sauna together. Kurisu asks Kaminami why she always goes to the sauna before taking a bath. Kaminami realizes that they can't have a smooth conversation when they're alone, so she starts talking about Yuiga's progress. To ease Kurisu's anxiety, Kaminami playfully pulls her down, surprising Kurisu. Kaminami teases Kurisu and admits that she's jealous of her beautiful skin. In men's bath area, Yuiga overhears the ladies' conversation and starts imagining wild scenarios between Kurisu and Kaminami. Suddenly, Yuiga's younger sister sneaks into the ladies' area and becomes starstruck by Kurisu's pretty skin. She asks Kurisu to marry her older brother, but Kurisu initially refuses to avoid hurting the child's feelings. However, seeing the kid cry, Kurisu changes her answer, which makes Yuiga's sister jump with joy. She says she'll tell her brother right away, making Kurisu panic and slip. The receptionist asks for help, and Yuiga, the only young man there, steps in. Kurisu regains consciousness after a few minutes. She wakes up to realize that she is in Yuiga's arms and they look like a newlywed couple. The day after, Yuiga, along with Rizu and Furuhashi, visited their English professor's office for a mock interview to practice for higher-level interviews. Rizu and Furuhashi were visibly nervous at first. Furuhashi even attempted to escape by suggesting a good food place for their tutoring sessions. but Yuiga was determined to proceed with the interview. He comforted the girls by assuring them that the interview would pass swiftly since their English professor isn't strict. As they settle in the waiting area, the door suddenly slams open, revealing Kurisu substituting for their English teacher. Anxiety surges through them at her intimidating presence. Rizu reluctantly answers first, facing Kurisu's complex questions that seem to drain her soul. Furuhashi follows, managing the first question decently but stumbling with the rest. Even Yuiga himself gets nervous upon his turn. Despite trying to picture Kurisu in casual clothes, he finds himself imagining her in a daring swimsuit, which only unsettles him further. Despite his distraction, he manages to handle the last question. But Kurisu continues to grill him until the end of the interview, during the tutoring sessions between Yuiga and Rizu in the library. He manages to invite her to attend a sample lecture at a university known for its excellent psychology courses. Yuiga shows Rizu the university brochure, but their conversation is interrupted when a swift runner enters. Sawako also shows Rizu the brochure, realizing Yuiga had already shown it, creating an awkward silence. However, Rizu suggests they all go to the sample lectures together. On the day of the event, Rizu waits on a bench, but Sawako texts her that she won't be coming due to stomach issues. Unbeknownst to Rizu, Yuiga also uses the same excuse while hiding nearby. Rizu feels sad because her friends aren't with her. Suddenly, Yuiga and Sawako appear, surprising her. They then go to the event together. As they enter the school, they stumble upon a math lecture, which Rizu finds easy but challenges Yuiga and Sawako. Meanwhile, Yuiga heads towards the lecture hall, noticing Rizu's overwhelming reception due to her math genius. He pulls her away to attend the psychology lecture with Sawako. During the psychology class, the lecturer's topic on first kisses makes Yuiga and Rizu feel awkward. Yuiga receives a text from Sawako to hold hands with Rizu, leading him to search for her. Upon finding her, he promises Rizu to bring Sawako back. Later, Rizu is invited by college students to a barbecue while waiting for her friends. When Yuiga and Sawako arrive, they find Rizu drunk from the beer fumes. They help her sober up and sit her down in a park. Rizu expresses her disappointment about them always running away, wanting to spend time together. Yuiga apologizes, while Sawako attempts to bond by offering to take off her shirt. Yuiga visits the swim coach's office after being called out for failing grades in physical education. He stutters nervously, fearing failure in the only subject he struggles with, and seeks advice on which sport to take to improve his grades. After a brief counseling session with the coach, they head to the swimming gym to practice. Yuiga struggles to paddle and begins to panic, causing his coach to lose faith in his abilities. Meanwhile, Yuruka is warming up for an upcoming competition. When she sees Yuiga struggling in the pool, she approaches to help, catching the attention of their coach. Recognizing her skills, the coach asks Yuruka to teach Yuiga the basics of swimming. Despite being a swimming genius, Yuruka struggles to explain due to her lack of teaching experience. Just as the coach is about to intervene, Kurisu, the swim team's substitute, steps in. With her strict aura, she guides Yuiga with the basics until he makes progress. During their tutorial, Kurisu notices Yuruka's concerns about her upcoming competition and offers valuable advice, clearing her mind and boosting her confidence. Yuruka goes on to win the competition. After her victory, Yuruka is offered a scholarship to study abroad as a player, causing her to become distant during tutoring sessions with Yuiga. Furuhashi notices and encourages Yuruka to open up about her concerns. Yuruka confides in Furuhashi about the scholarship and her worries about her relationship with Yuiga. Yuiga enters the restaurant where Furuhashi and Yuruka are dining, and Furuhashi tries to cover for Yuruka's absence by pretending to be alone. However, Yuruka is hiding under the table. As they discuss Yuruka, Furuhashi asks Yuiga how he would feel if Yuruka liked someone else. Yuiga expresses happiness for her but admits he would miss her. Later, Yuruka decides to study abroad but asks the president to keep it a secret from her friends, especially Yuiga. Furuhashi walks into a room silently during the night to place a document on the table. The next day, an individual parent-teacher conference is held. Yuiga's mom is teased by the teacher to lighten the mood before discussing the potential VIP recommendation for Yuiga. His eyes gleam with hope at the mention of the VIP recommendation for universities and his future career. When asked what course he would like to take with the VIP recommendation, he hesitantly asks what would pay the highest in the future. The room falls silent until the end of the counseling. Yuiga's mother, silent throughout, breaks the silence by asking about his dreams, encouraging him to prioritize their family goals. Despite his determination, she insists on considering their family's well-being. After their talk, Furuhashi enters the room and informs them that her parents are too busy to attend. Yuiga's mother leaves without further notice, prompting Furuhashi and Yuiga to leave the campus. Later, Sawako meets Rizu and asks about the conference. Rizu explains that it went well except for sending her ill father home, continuing the conference without a parent. Mr. Furuhashi suddenly appears, urging Rizu to major in mathematics. Yuiga and Furuhashi arrive, surprised to see Sawako, Rizu, and Mr. Furuhashi together. Furuhashi is shocked to see her father, assuming he attended the conference. However, he clarifies his intentions, persuading Rizu to study mathematics. He then discourages Furuhashi from mathematics and recommends humanities instead. Furuhashi asks Sawako to take Rizu away, expressing frustration with her father's obsession with math. Sawako, confused, escorts Rizu away, leaving Furuhashi, her father, and Yuiga behind. Yuiga suggests discussing family matters at home, but Mr. Furuhashi refuses, stating Furuhashi would be better off living alone if she chooses her desired degree. Yuiga offers for Furuhashi to stay with his family temporarily, and they leave together. At Yuiga's home, his sister is baffled by Furuhashi's presence. The family agrees for her to stay, reassuring her that she isn't a burden. Furuhashi mentions not having anything to wear, leading Yuiga to suggest she wear his clothes. Later, she joins Mizuki and Yuiga's mother in the hot tub, discussing relationships and clarifying her feelings for Yuiga. After everyone goes to bed, Furuhashi and Yuiga study together, discussing her father's despair after her mother's death. The next morning, Furuhashi heads to school separately from Yuiga to avoid any misunderstanding. At school, she converses with Yuruka, fainting from anxiety when asked about her new scent. After school, she returns home with Yuiga to retrieve her clothes, hiding from her father. Discovering her mother's laptop hidden in a cabinet, they attempt to access it but find it password protected. Furuhashi explains that it contains her mother's thesis, which her father has kept from her. Later, Yuiga wakes up and finds out that Furuhashi is cooking breakfast instead of his mom. Yuiga's mom tells him that the family has plans for the day. With that, both Yuiga and Furuhashi are given chores to do at home. They start doing the chores, but things quickly become chaotic. Yuiga decides to take a bath, but then Furuhashi suddenly rushes into the bathroom and offers to clean his back. Yuiga gets embarrassed when he sees that Furuhashi wants to get in the tub with him. When Furuhashi joins Yuiga in the bath, she starts rubbing a towel on his back. Suddenly, she remembers a memory from her past when she used to do the same for her father when she was young. Yuiga tells her that she doesn't have to pretend to stay away from her father, but Furuhashi explains that it's better that way because they haven't been getting along. She then rests on Yuiga's back and falls asleep. Later that night, she wakes up and realizes that she still has to study. Yuiga's younger brother and sister greet her, and Yuiga suggests that she should sleep longer since she deserves rest after a busy day. Furuhashi refuses, but Yuiga agrees with her and invites her on a date, which she agrees to. Yuiga takes her to the mountains where they can see a beautiful view of the night sky filled with lots of stars. Yuiga starts naming each star, and Furuhashi is really happy to know that he studies about each one. Furuhashi gets even more excited and starts talking about the stars, naming and describing them with a cheerful mood. Yuiga then asks if she has told her father about her love for the stars. Furuhashi disagrees and says that her father wouldn't listen. However, Yuiga tells her that her father only shows interest in the stars when she tells him about them. She takes a sip of her tea but spits it out immediately. Losing her balance, she's caught by Yuiga, who reassures her that he's there to support her. He encourages her to give speaking to her father another try. She then remembers a memory of her mother asking her if there's a star that she wants to name. What would it be? Furuhashi comes home and waits for her father to arrive. She gathers her full strength to speak to him about what she really wants. But he still rejects her choices and makes it clear that his decisions are final and wouldn't be changing. She then tells him about her passions and how they would always look up to the night skies before. But he speaks to her without emotions and tells her that it isn't the same as before, and said that his wife would have agreed with his decision if she was still alive. Furuhashi suggests asking her mom's laptop. Her father is surprised when he realizes that she found the laptop he was hiding. He tells her that she wasn't supposed to touch it, but she manages to open it without telling him how. Inside, instead of a thesis, they find a file folder with a star icon. In that folder, there's a video, which turns out to be the last video her mother made. They both watch it, and it reveals things that her father didn't know, like how her mother used his first name. The password for the file is Ryuji, and Furuhashi decides to name a star after her father, Ryuji, since it's a name that she and her mother loved. Later, Furuhashi is found with her mom and a telescope on a balcony. Her mom tells her that she might feel lonely soon, but assures her that she shouldn't worry because she'll find someone who will support her just like her dad supported her mom. Her mom then says something in the air. Yuiga asks if she said something, but Furuhashi says it's nothing and thanks Yuiga for supporting her. They sit on the balcony outside her house, and Yuiga realizes he didn't really do anything, but Furuhashi still thanks him. She pretends to be asleep and leans on his shoulder. Yuiga understands and thinks she must be tired after a long day. However, Furuhashi says she's awake, and they both feel a little awkward. She says she'll move soon but asks if they can stay like that for a while. The next day, Furuhashi and her dad came out of a meeting room. She tells Yuiga that her dad finally approved of their relationship. Mr. Furuhashi went to Yuiga's house to talk to his mom and gave him money as a token of gratitude for taking care of Furuhashi during their conflict. He admits that after his wife passed away, he fell into despair and once got angry at Furuhashi. He feels ashamed of his actions and realizes that he couldn't focus on his daughter because he was too consumed by math. After that, Yuiga and Furuhashi think that the person her dad was talking to was Yuiga's mom. Furuhashi mentions how socially awkward her dad is. Suddenly, Mr. Furuhashi speaks up and asks if they're talking about him. He stopped by because he remembered he had something to ask Yuiga about their relationship. They both clarify that they're just friends and ask her dad to leave. Yuiga and the girls are dining in a restaurant, finishing up some homework while engaging in light conversation. They are talking about what each of them will major in after the third year, but Yuiga becomes silent when asked. Later that night, he contemplates at home while his family sleeps. The next day, the school festival is in full swing with lots of excitement. Yuiga is busy sewing costumes for their booth when a classmate needed plywood. He offers to help and goes to get some. On his way, he bumps into the girls who were enjoying some udon. Yuiga asked Rizu for some, and she gave him a generous portion. It was technically Rizu's group booth, and Furuhashi and Yuruka were there to eat. They briefly chatted about their roles for the festival, but Yuiga had to excuse himself to get back to work. At the same time, in the teacher's room, two male teachers who were assigned to help with the school-wide conference are talking to Kurisu about her costume for the festival. They are discussing the details, but seem a bit concerned. Meanwhile, Furuhashi's booth group is having a meeting about their upcoming play, Sleeping Beauty. During the meeting, Furuhashi is chosen to be the main character. She stands up and tries to explain why she shouldn't be in the spotlight again, causing some chaos. However, she is eventually taken away for her costume fitting. Meanwhile, Yuiga is happily sewing costumes by himself when Kurisu shows up and tells him that school hours are over. He quickly asks her for another mock interview to help him figure out his major, and she agrees to help him out. On the day of the festival, everyone is super excited and ready for the events. Yuiga finishes his tasks and decides to help out at a booth instead of just standing around. He goes to Rizu's booth first, but they have too much udon, so he ends up handing out flyers. While doing that, he comes across the swim team, who are in a bit of a pickle because Yuruka's costume is missing. Yuiga then goes out of his way to search for it. Out of nowhere, a kid yells that they saw someone wearing a costume up in the sky. Yuiga hurried to the rooftop and discovers Kurisu wearing the pink fairy outfit meant for Yuruka. He explains what happened, and everything got sorted out. As a result, Yuiga went backstage with one of his classmates to help the swim team with their play. When the curtain opens, instead of Yuruka, it is Kurisu who takes the stage to play the part. The crowd gets super excited when they see the students dancing on stage. Everyone is surprised because Kurisu, who is usually serious and strict, starts dancing too. The music is loud, but Kurisu had already told Yuiga that she'd rather die than sing, so she doesn't even open her mouth during the dance. Suddenly, the lights go off after the performance, and when they come back on, Yuruka is now with Kurisu's group to sing another song and get the audience even more hyped. The stadium is filled with cheers as the performance comes to an end. Before everyone leaves, the group on stage promotes Rizu's udon to try and get 1,000 orders. They've already gotten over 200 orders, but Yuiga is still worried about not reaching the goal. With that, he works hard to hand out flyers after the performance. While Yuiga is handing out flyers, a student from Furuhashi's group comes up to him. She introduces herself and offers to help sell out the udon. In return, she asks him to assist with their play's costumes. Yuiga agrees, not realizing that her plan is to capture Furuhashi's prince for the play. When he starts to suspect her intentions, she tells him to change into staff clothes. Yuiga obliges and puts on a costume, which turns out to be a cat mascot dressed as a prince. At first, Yuiga is really confused, but he decides to go outside anyway. As soon as he opens the door, he sees two male teachers running towards him, looking for the cat costume. Without thinking, he starts running as fast as he can to get away from them. He just wants to go to the gym and help Furuhashi's group and Rizu sell out the udon. Later, Kaminami helped her new club members perform and comes across the cat prince. When she hears his voice, she recognizes him and helps him escape from the teachers and get to the gym. During the play, there's a scene where the prince should kiss Sleeping Beauty, played by Furuhashi. Since the prince is missing, the school president challenges the audience to find someone worthy of kissing Furuhashi. This causes a lot of excitement and the backdrop accidentally falls. Just as it's about to hit Furuhashi, Yuiga jumps in and saves her like a true prince. Everyone is amazed, and Furuhashi, wanting to end the play, apologizes softly to whoever is inside the cat mascot and kisses the cat prince. The crowd goes wild, and the performance becomes a big hit. The prince gets really embarrassed and runs away from the scene, blushing like crazy. Even though he leaves, Furuhashi keeps going with the play and gets a big round of applause for her performance, even though the story is a bit different now. After the play, he takes off his costume and leaves an office that he doesn't recognize, still holding onto the costume. The male teachers see him sneaking out, but they don't chase after him anymore. He's about to go back to handing out flyers, feeling like he messed up his job. Later on, he bumps into Furuhashi's classmates, who don't know that he's the one behind the cat prince costume. They start saying mean things about whoever is inside the costume, so he decides to keep his secret from them too. While all this is happening, some people in the audience notice a flyer that fell from Yuiga's pocket when he ran away. They become curious about the identity of the prince and quickly head over to the udon booth, hoping to find out who was behind the costume. As more people line up for the udon, Furuhashi and Yuruka start helping out by selling the food. During a little break, Rizu joins Yuiga and they both have some udon. As Yuiga takes a bite, he realizes that his noodles are quite hard. Rizu checks her own bowl and takes a bite too. Surprisingly, she ends up eating the same strand of noodle as Yuiga, and they have a cute moment together, almost like a couple. However, a kid starts teasing them for their little moment, and they both get all embarrassed and quickly move away from each other. Meanwhile, Yuiga decides to use this idea to sell even more udon. Apparently, there are couples coming to the campus for the fireworks and this thing called the jinx. The jinx says that if you touch someone's hand during the first fireworks, they'll be a couple forever. Kaminami comes up with this couple promo, and it gets even more people in line for the udon. And guess what? They end up selling out all the udon before the day is over. And the best part is, all of their friends are there to see the fireworks together at night. Meanwhile, Furuhashi's group, who really want her to get closer to Yuiga, start pushing her towards him. Just then Sawako, who wants Rizu to be with Yuiga, pushes her too. Even Yuruka joins in and pushes herself towards him. It's like a big push fest. And guess what? They all end up falling over Yuiga, who is right in front of them. And to make things even more chaotic, they all end up pushing him over Kurisu and Kaminami. As they sit down to watch the fireworks, the first one doesn't light up, disappointing everyone. At second attempt, the sky bursts into dazzling colors. Yuiga sees all the girls, including Kaminami and Kurisu, enjoying the moment together. He can't help but smile at the heartwarming scene. The next day, Yuiga has a practice test with Kurisu, and he really impresses her with his skills and his passion for studying education. They both work hard in the following days and months, preparing for their entrance exams and graduation. They both succeed and get accepted into their dream universities. Thanks for watching till this long, my fellow men of culture. Don't forget to tell us about your favorite waifu from this anime and subscribe to the channel for more content.